Have you guys seen ads on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook for the game Tokyo Debunkers? We first saw the ads on our feeds back in late 2019 with coming April 2020 tagline. And since we're otome lovers and game developers ourselves, we were pretty excited to see something new on the scene that wasn't just Obey Me or like Mr. Love, so we wanted to know what this game had to offer.
And the advertising on this, you guys, is really well done. There's a full opening video like an anime with a song and everything. It kind of gives off a Mystic Messenger vibe, so we were really interested in the game. The game's premise has to do with you becoming the manager of a team of debunkers working together to catch infected individuals, and it's been generating a ton of buzz, especially here in the United States. However, when March came, just a few weeks before they were set to release, April 2020, the official Tokyo Debunkers Twitter announced that the game would be postponed due to the pandemic creating issues with providing adequate player support and improvements that they wanted to make to the game.
And at the time, it was actually pretty reasonable for that to happen. Everything was chaotic in the world. We didn't know what was going on. People were not in the office and out of the office. People could have been getting sick. So
lots of things were getting canceled.
Yeah, but the problem is months had gone by and there was absolutely no updates. It was pretty much silent on all platforms. But there was something that was kind of weird. There was no updates yet. There was ads continuously going.
Expensive ads at that. We're game developers ourselves, so we know how expensive it is to run ads, especially on Twitter. It's like $50 to just get one day of advertising, and you can't change the budget at all. Whereas Facebook and Instagram, you can do a couple dollars a day and stretch it out over time. And they were doing Twitter ads non-stop.
Yeah.
Then finally in June, there was an update.
Yes. So the update came basically saying sorry for all of the silence. However, they're going to push back the release date indefinitely. They don't have a release time. They don't know what's going on. And this is now the third pushback that we've been able to see that Tokyo Debunkers is not getting released, and 3 different reasons, to be honest, as to why it wasn't getting released.
So we started to see comments of people flooding in, and they weren't responding. They didn't post anything really since June besides running their ads that they have run in the past. So we decided to look further into it, and what we found out really surprised us. This is a story of young game developers striking gold and moving to Tokyo, a story of underpaid and overworked employees, a story of greed and mystery. This is a story of Tokyo Debunkers. And our first case, Unlatte Film Investigations.
So when we started looking into this and just getting suspicious, we wanted to go all the way back to the beginning. So they started their original social media pages back in February of last year. And as we're just scrolling through the timeline, March is not the first postponement, but a lot of people who are probably new to Tokyo Debunkers, if you've ever seen it, it looked like March was the very first time.
That's how it looked to us, because we actually found it in around December of 2019.
Yeah.
So actually in November of 2019, they had announced their first postponement because they had just been saying coming in 2019, and 2019 was running out. They even were offering Christmas things you could buy for the game, so people were hoping that it would be there December 2019, but then they postponed it to April 2020.
And so that's the first time, so it's postponed, which is totally could happen. I mean, with something on such a large scale and with all of the mechanisms that we're going to look at because they were posting sneak peeks, this looks like a super interactive game, right? So the first postponement made sense. 4 months later, we come into March, and now the second postponement saying that they don't have the support that they're needing to launch this game.
Which at the time, because of COVID, everything was really up in the air. Perhaps they were working with people who, were more at risk for COVID, and that was just their current support team, and they needed to build and figure out a work from home situation.
Yeah.
But it became clear that maybe that wasn't the real reason why they were postponing the game again. Mm-hmm. And we started to wonder, who's behind Tokyo Debunkers? Is it an indie developer? That might make some sense since they're trying to do a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, and it's expensive to pay for assets and ads, but at the same time, they were running really expensive ads everywhere all the time. So we had to just figure out what was going on.
And just to give you some perspectives, we're indie game makers. So what takes us to make a game specifically is really like about a year's worth of time if you don't already have a lot of the assets.
And that's with us working full time. I think we could do it in 6 months if we already had assets and we were able to focus our full days on our app, which we're not right now.
Yeah, so that's how long it takes us. Hiring artists, talking negotiating, making payments, advertising on a game that we already had out. It's a lot of work. So that would make sense if they were just two indie game workers. But what we instead found is we looked them up actually on Glassdoor, and they have about 50 to 200 employees.
Yeah, and I'm going to guess that they're on the lower end, maybe 50 employees, to give the benefit of the doubt, because as long as you're over 50, they put you in this 50 to 200 gap.
So that's just kind of what gave us some suspicions. And when we were looking, because they're still signing up to this day, everything that they have out there still says that the release is as of 2019, which is odd.
Yeah, there was a lot of things that weren't that professional, so we were super surprised to figure out that it's actually a company called Zigza Games, which you may have heard of because they are a pretty well-known name in the gaming industry, at least if you're plugged into that. They came out with Neo Monsters, which did really well, and then they also do Evertale, which is another one of their big hits. So we were scrolling on the Glassdoor page because we saw that they had a company in Tokyo, and we were looking through, and the reviews were starting to say some things that kind of took us by surprise and actually got us more interested into the story, because it turns out that from what the reviews were saying, it was two Americans, one was half Japanese, one was full American, and they actually incorporated over there after Neo Monsters took off. So it's kind of like our story. We would love to go and incorporate in Tokyo whenever we, have a game that takes off like that.
Yeah. So they went over there, but a lot of the reviews are overworked employees, overtime that was said that was never supposed to happen, overworked employees.
And this isn't just like one review said, oh, there was overtime and they told me there wouldn't be. Every single review says that. I'll put some on the screen for you guys right now, but pretty much everyone was saying the two owners were extremely unprofessional, too young to be running a game company. They would cuss a lot. They would promise things that never came to fruition, and there was a high turnover at the company because of it.
Yeah, not being paid properly, and a lot of outsourcing their work.
Which adds up with some of the things that we saw on their social media.
Yeah.
Because they do have a lot of followers. We're not trying to say that they bought them or anything, but they don't have much interaction on their posts, which leads us to believe they just hired somebody to build their social media.
Yeah, because it's kind of jarring to think of. So on their American Instagram, I don't want to say American, but English reading Instagram, there's over 55,000 followers. However, on their Japanese one, there's less than 3,000 followers, which is a little off-putting because that's such a huge difference. Whereas on their Twitters, they actually have this similar amount of followers. So what's really going on?
Yeah, which is weird to us too, because we're experiencing trying to build our social media on our own right now. Of course, I have a marketing degree, so I know a little bit behind that, but typically Twitter's the more difficult one to build up versus Instagram. So that was really interesting.
Yeah. And then obviously reading those comments. But so then it made us go look at some of more of their work, their official website, their LinkedIn. And actually what we found on LinkedIn was something even more surprising. So when you look on their official LinkedIn, it says that they have a total of 12 games.
In 120 plus countries. They really sell themselves as this big corporate entity with lots of money behind them and on the fast track to success, basically.
But when you look at their official page, they only show 5 current games that are out there. And
one of those is Tokyo Debunker.
So you can't count that one. And then they have, of course, Neo Monsters, Evertale.
There's one called
Asuna?
Asakura?
Yeah, that's the one. All 3 of those games pretty much do the same thing. It's like a battle game, Clash of Clans kind of thing. You build up to something.
Microtransactions.
You're buying all of this. However, they have another game called Venus 11 that actually just recently is now off the market.
Right, so when we were looking at the page to fact check these 12 games that they supposedly have out that are successful, there's only 5. Now it's down to 4 because Tokyo Debunkers isn't out, and everything checked out except for this Venus game.
We looked around, and then as soon as we go to click on it, the game no longer exists on the Apple Store at all, which is crazy. So we're like, did this game ever exist at all? We did some deeper investigating. The game actually did exist. It still exists, I want to say, on the Japanese circuit.
That's what we're gathering from the comments, because we couldn't really prove or disprove anything. We just kind of got information from the comments. We can prove that it's definitely not on the English-speaking side of Google Play and the App Store. But people were saying things like shut down because the game was not advertised very well and the player base was nearly non-existent from the start. And we saw a lot of things referencing they couldn't get global to work, meaning that maybe it wasn't doing so well in English-speaking countries, so they were just going to port them over to a global server because the Japanese game was doing well. But it didn't work out somehow, which is strange for something with a lot of money behind it and a lot of employees for you not to be able to figure out a global server.
Yeah, because it was a pretty large game. It was a game about building up a soccer team, but it also had an otome like romance, which was definitely the B plot of all of it. A lot of
well, it's rather than otome, it was, I don't know what they call it.
Romance simulation.
It's basically the opposite. It's girls, so it's targeted for males, and it's the girls. And that's what made us kind of think maybe this is going to be kind of what Tokyo Debunkers is like, because they're going to have like the A plot of hunting these demons or ghouls or whatever, and the B plot is the romance, which is something we want to touch on at the end of this video.
Yeah. So we just kept finding these things. We don't know. We actually found their official Twitter and found some other games that literally don't exist anymore. They might have at one point because now they may have just didn't do well and then they took them off.
Yeah, Dragon Island and Hunter Island were referenced, but we couldn't find any footprint on that.
So what's showing to us is there's a consistent pattern. They have the game out, it doesn't do well, and they completely keep it off, but they never really update any of their information. And to see on LinkedIn that they have 12 games, and then you go to their official page, and 2 of the 5 games that they have listed are no longer available to buy, it's really jarring to see as a player or a consumer because what's going on.
It definitely makes you lose trust. We were really excited about this game, but to learn that more than half of their games end up not doing well and end up getting taken off the market, it's not necessarily a good thing, especially when you realize that it's microtransactions that are building it up, so you're going to have a lot of money invested and you're not going to end up getting the story.
Yeah. So that brings us to now looking deeper into Tokyo Debunker then. So looking at how the company is, there's a lot of complaints from the employees, they're outsourcing work. Tokyo Debunker seems like it should be set up the way that Mystic Messenger was set up, Mr. Love, and Obey Me, how it's this interactive game, you're beating through levels, you're going to do extra side things. However, with all of these things happening and all of the sneak previews they had, the opening they had, all of this, where is the game?
They're spending a lot of money to not be having the game come out. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's a lot to see because it's a lot of effort that goes in, and we're just speaking from firsthand experience. The music alone, which actually something that we found out recently is that the person who did the music on Evertale actually did the same, not the same, but like did our music for Snow Kissed.
The same composer that did Snow Kissed Romance, our first Otome title. And he was extremely expensive. I mean, he does amazing work, but it's around $300 a minute for his compositions. And I believe we had 4 songs, so yeah, it racked up. They had 23 though, and a lot of them were close to 2 minutes. So that's a lot of money that they're paying for assets on that regard. And then we hear for their very first game, Neo Monsters, that they were outsourcing all of the art for extremely cheap in Mexico, I believe it was, from the Glassdoor reviews. So there's a lot of inconsistencies and a lack of organization in this company, and it kind of seems like a cash grab test because at this point, they must have seen the success of games like Mr. Love and Mystic Messenger. Clearly, they're inspired a lot by them, if you can see the intro video, but it just doesn't seem like they're going to be able to pull through, and that's what concerned us.
Yeah. Also, how are they going to implement this otome feeling? It seems like they're diving into a totally new area, even though they had a similar type with the Venus 11 game. That game is totally involved about one particular goal. How are they going to involve the romance? What's going to happen? From the previews that I've seen, it's just plot after plot, but where is the romance? Do you get to choose someone? Is it microtransactions? Are there SSR cards that you're gonna get?
They're showing calls. Is that just like a separate thing you can buy, or is that embedded into the story like Mystic Messenger? It's just, I don't know. I mean, we'll obviously not know until it comes out, and
hopefully
we
it does.
Still have no idea when it will come out. I can't foresee them scrapping it after all this money's been spent on it.
Because it is aggressive advertising. I cannot go one day without going on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter without seeing a Tokyo Debunker, and they're still asking people to register. If you click on the registration and then you click next, it literally says as of 2019. The other thing that if you go on their official website, they have paid voice actors, and not just any voice actors. I'm talking about professionals who have been in like major anime projects like Kami-sama Kiss or Tokyo Ghoul, all of that kind of stuff too. And it's crazy because that means that they're paying top dollar.
They're paying top dollar composers, we know for sure. Top dollar voice actors, we know for sure. We're not so sure about the art because we've heard back and forth things on that. And honestly, I think that's probably the weakest point of this game is its art. While the intro looked really cool, the actual sprites aren't my favorite. But yeah, and we've just seen a lot of people asking questions and they don't answer on their social media. So we thought we would just make this video showing all of our findings because we just organically decided to look into this after it had kept showing up on our feeds.
Yeah.
And this is what we found. And for us personally, we're still going to play it, of course, if it comes out, just to see what it's like and to share it with you guys. But
we're hoping that I honestly think it does, but we're now coming into now where the game has been delayed almost an additional year from last year, and it's going to lose its momentum. I think that you overshoot a time frame. You only have so much time before people lose interest. And when I say comment after comment, they make jokes like this is like yandere dev or all these other things. There's nothing to back up what's going to happen. I mean, even the little the little post that they post on Instagram, that takes a lot of time and it costs money to have those assets. So where is the game? Why aren't they saying anything?
And there's all these people at their company supposedly working overtime, and what are they working overtime on? Because there's only 3 active games technically. So
and what also bothers me is that every reason it's pushed back is changed. First, it was we wanted to get it out by the first of the year, but we want to make sure that the game is working to its best. Then it's we don't have enough support. And now it's we don't know what's going to happen. There should be somebody that's for sure there. And the problem is, and it's not to come off super harsh, but it seems like these people these 2 guys that started this game company, they got rich off of Neo Monsters, which is awesome. I mean, if you can do that, totally give you kudos. They went over to Japan and they kind of just got disorganized from there without a real plan.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, I believe we saw somewhere on their LinkedIn that there's actually somebody else in there now kind of helping out, and they opened up an office in Seattle, which I think is good for them. But it's definitely kind of a tale of caution for us too, because of course that's what we always talk about. You know, if one of our games takes off, it would be so amazing to just go to Tokyo and open up an office and incorporate there, and then that would be the dream.
Yeah.
But obviously you need to have a lot more in place before you do that, or a situation like this could unravel.
Yeah, so again, with seeing everything that we know, 12 titles when there's really just 3 titles, it leaves a really sour taste in your mouth because it's hard to trust companies when they don't have anything to back up what they got.
Right. Imagine you're starting to get really into a story and you've been paying a lot of money to keep up with the guy's storyline, and it never gets finished because there just wasn't enough sales. It's all a numbers game with these people, obviously. So it's not a passion project. It's not something that they're going to finish no matter what. And that's kind of what scares us and the kind of the caution we want to give you guys in games like this.
Yeah. So when you see games that are like Obey Me, they have an entire repertoire behind them that has all the Shall We Date games that have been completed.
They're a trusted company.
Mystic Messenger has all of Charit's games, or, you know,
Voltage.
Voltage, Mr. Love. They all have a good track record. But with this, what it's shown us is that in the past, when the game isn't working out, they just shut down the project, which I understand. If I'm not going to I'm not going to keep going on with something, but honestly, if that happens, so many people are going to have all those microtransactions and it just disappears, and it's not fair. So I hope that they come out with the game, and I hope everything works out.
Yeah.
And if it does and we play it and we like it, we're definitely going to give it a review. But just a tale of caution, and maybe look into, and in comments below, please, if you've looked on Tokyo Debunker, if you've gotten those ads, or your thoughts or predictions on what's going to happen.
Yeah, and have you been wondering the same thing? I mean, I feel like a lot of people have been, but no one's really talking about it, which is why we made this video.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you think and what you think of the otome industry as a whole when it's coming to these microtransaction type games.
Yeah, and well, while we're at it, definitely go follow us on our lovely incorporated Instagram. We have a new game coming out as of November called My Love for You is Evermore. And follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe to this channel, not this, but anyway. All right, well, that is our first installment of Latte and Foam Investigations.
Let us know if you have any cases that we should be looking into related to otome anime, or just something you find interesting.
All right, see you guys later.
Bye.